All right, we are now joined by a very, very special guest. It is three-time recurring guest, friend of the podcast. It is Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Matt Strahm. Hey, we were just talking three times. That's no small feat. I always appreciate when you come on, Matt. It's great to see you. How are you?
I'm great, and thanks for having me. You make it so easy, so it's not hard to jump on here with you. So
Oh,
it's nice
appreciate
to
that,
be
dude.
back.
One of my all-time favorites. So I wanted to start because I said Phillies pitcher. I didn't say specify a starter or reliever.
I
I
loved
think
it.
there's a quote from you. You don't like putting a designation on either one of those. You're more just like, I like being a pitcher. And you did
Yeah,
both roles very well last year. Like, did you learn anything about yourself going back and forth between the bullpen and the starting rotation last year?
I mean, my entire career has kind of been that whole roller coaster. I don't even know what spring training this is for me. I think it's spring number 9 in big league camp, and I think there's only been 2 years that I've shown up to camp knowing that hey, you're going to be a reliever. Otherwise, it's always like come ready to start and we'll figure it out from there. But I think from this year, early in your year, you're trying to identify what you do and who you are. And this year, it was like just all out compete, and it definitely stemmed from the clubhouse. When you have a clubhouse of guys like Kyle Schwarber, JT. I mean, JT catches 150 games a year, and it's ridiculous. Like he's the epitome of a grinder. So, when you have guys around you like that who just want to compete and win every day, I mean, you're just selfish to look at yourself and be like, I want to do X, Y, or Z instead of just whatever these guys need to win.
Is it easy to feed off that kind of energy in the clubhouse?
Oh, yeah. And like, that's what's cool about our clubhouse. You don't need to look for it. You don't need to like I've been in some clubhouses where it's kind of, I don't want to say clicky, but like one side of the clubhouse maybe a little more sour than the other side, or like just depending on who's playing what. But like this clubhouse, everyone keeps each other. It's not that we like are walking around like, hey, pick your head up, do this, but it's just the vibe of the clubhouse just picks everyone up. And I mean, it's yeah, I can't explain it, and it's fun to be a part of.
Ooh, here's something. I've talked to some guys and they said that like there is sort of like a division between position players and pitchers. And like they'll go out on the road and like the pitchers will kind of hang out with each other and the position players. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
like intermingling. Is that the case in Philly? I feel like everybody there is probably just like one big family.
No, we definitely are. And again, I give a lot of props to Kyle Schwarber. I think it's the ex catcher in him. He misses us pitchers. He doesn't get to hang out with us anymore or as much. So, I mean, team dinners, Kyle is hitting up all 26 guys that are up on that roster and, hey, let's go to dinner. Let's do this. This is what we got. And yeah, I've definitely been on teams where it's like, hey, there's a bullpen dinner. Hey, there's a starting pitchers dinner. And then there's an infield or an out, like little, again, it sounds high schooly, but little cliques. And yeah, it was very fun, and it was cool to be a part of last year and see how they just again they vibe as one team. Kind of reminds
That's
me of like
yeah.
travel ball when you're 12 to 14 years old. Like we're all just players. Like let's go dick around in the pool for an hour and then go beat some butt on the baseball diamond. Like that's kind of what the Phillies are, and I like it.
That's the best. Like that's also a team full of very wealthy individuals. Who grabs the check at dinner?
I mean, it's always taken care of. I can tell you that. But no, JT, Trey, Kyle, Casty. I mean, Craig Kimbrell. All those guys are taking very good care of us. We're never leaving a restaurant hungry. That's for sure.
I love that question so much because I asked our guy Hosmer that question and he
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, Manny's grabbing." It's like, "All
yeah,
right, thanks, Manny." Before the check comes,
yeah.
it's
But
it's
that
Machado.
that's humble Hosmer speaking, because I've seen Hos pick up so many. Last year was the first year I never played in the big leagues with Hosmer. Did you know that?
Aw,
So
no.
I played for 3 different teams up until that point. Phillies were my 4th team last year. Played for 3 different teams over 7 seasons, and Eric Hosmer was on all of them.
How's he doing, by the way? Have you checked in with him? I've wanted to get him back on this podcast. I don't know logistically what that would look like.
Yeah.
Um, he's the goat. How have you checked in with him?
I mean, I've been just checking in on him through social media and stuff. Just looks like he's enjoying dad life. And I mean, I would love to see him keep playing. I hated how it ended for him in San Diego. And I mean, again, he's he is one of the ultimate. He for sure is on the top three of my ultimate teammate list, and and all three of the two other guys are probably all one as well. They're all probably one, but you know, he's an unbelievable competitor, and he loves playing the game. He got this weird stigma in San Diego that hits too many ground balls and all this. It's like, no, that is Eric Hosmer. He's going to hit 280, drive in 110, and play first in elite first base. And it was, I mean, yeah, it was unfortunate how it ended for him there in San Diego. And like I said, I would have loved to see him come back and finish on a high note. But I mean, he's probably happier in hell doing the dad life thing.
Yeah, that's there's a part of me that's like I don't know if it's like selfish, but I just like I want to see him keep playing. Like it's I as an outsider, like I didn't grow up a Royals fan or anything.
Yeah,
Actually, when the Royals were playing the Orioles, it was tough because it's like that rivalry was kind of big. But like getting to know him just through the one time, and also just like keeping track with him in like San Diego. Yeah, there was so much hate directed his way. It's like,
yeah.
oh, he misplayed a ground ball at first. He's the worst person ever. Yeah, he grounded out.
And,
Whatever. It's like,
and I mean,
have you ever
some of that
seen that?
does come with a contract. I mean, it's sports. I mean, I'm sure the Buffalo Bills kicker right now is not enjoying his profession, and you know, it's something we have to deal with when we're in the entertainment world, especially in sports. And I I think Hosmer did an unbelievable job handling it. How he, I mean, he never once brought that stuff with him into the clubhouse. He never once let it show around any of the guys. And I mean, he'll. I don't want to speak for him, but again, we're humans. That it affects you, no doubt. But he did an unbelievable job of being the ultimate pro and just going about his business. And yeah,
Everybody needs an Eric Hosmer on their team. Like
hundred
there's
percent,
just feel that's
100%.
yeah.
I think he could manage a big league team one day. But there again, it would be, does he want to? Definitely
Right.
doesn't need to, but does he want to? Because
He's
I think
also
he's really good at it.
well spoken enough. He could do the media thing. He'd be sitting at the desk at MLB Network if he wanted to. I also feel like, but
Yeah, no
um,
doubt, no
dang.
doubt. And he's
I
always
wanted
dressed
to.
sharp. He'd be perfect for that.
What,
He's always got the right suit.
it's very well dressed. Yes, to the nines, three piece. Yeah, the whole thing.
No doubt.
Um, I had a question because this offseason, have you changed anything about your routines? You've been in the bigs. That was your eighth season. Congrats. You're getting close to 10-year service time. Like, have you changed anything about your offseason preparation routine? Like, is it more conditioning now? Are we doing some cardio? Like what's the Matt Strahm offseason like?
Yeah, I'm chasing a 3-year-old around. That increased my cardio quite a bit. But no, I've the last couple years, going through all the knee stuff I had in 2020 and 2021. Really just, I mean, I learned a lot from that, and you know, I learned a lot when I was in Boston. Boston's strength and conditioning and athletic training group is unbelievable, and again, just carried it over here into Philly. Philly is, I mean, Morgan and Fury here. They're great in the weight room with just being open to what the player's done, and they do like they work with you and explain why they want you to do this instead of that. And like I've had other strength coaches where it's like you're going to do this just because this is what we do. And my personality doesn't fit well with that. I'm very coachable, but I like an explanation. If you come to me and tell me X, Y, and Z, I'll be like, okay, and then I'll do it. If you come to me and say because I said so, it just doesn't sit well with me, and I'm like, I'm a grown man here. Like we're all grown men. Like we can talk about this. So, yeah, I've dialed it in over the last 2 or 3 years, and I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what I need to do to get ready. The one thing I joke with Caleb, our pitching coach, all the time. I was like, the only thing I need to know is what am I? And I said, but I don't need to know because I'll do whatever. So it's like I just mess with them a little bit.
Hey, shout out Morgan, friend of the podcast. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
He's getting
yeah,
getting
yeah.
you in shape down there?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think I'll ever be in his shape, but he's getting me in shape.
Who is? Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt,
um,
no doubt.
I saw so 2023 was the most innings you've thrown since 2019. I want to bring that up because there, fans will bring this up. I'll see it on X all the time, and it's just like, you know, sometimes I feel like there's a tendency for fans to blame like pitcher struggles on like, it's most innings he's ever thrown.
Right.
Like, could you feel that as the summer went on? Like, hey, my body, I'm doing more than I have in the past.
You know, honestly, I didn't feel that, and a lot of that probably had to do with the atmosphere we were pitching in. I mean, Citizens Bank Park will make you go numb and not feel anything. So, I think that definitely helped me a lot. But again, it comes down to what we do in the weight room and the training room to be prepared to pitch. I don't think you'll ever hear a pitcher say I was tired and that's why my numbers dipped. I mean, there's cases where you get injured or you have dead arm, stuff like that. I never really experienced that. And I mean, I felt like I finished pretty strong. So more
Can you
innings,
explain what are the dog days of summer like? Like what is it like as the season goes on? Like, it's hot outside, you're pitching outside. It's like what effect does that have?
yeah, I mean, as a starter, it definitely affects you differently. Just in your stamina, and I mean, it drains you, no doubt. But again, like I don't really notice it anymore. It's kind of you're anticipating it. I mean, I know coming into spring, I'll feel really good the first week of spring, and then by about my second or third outing of spring, I'll have dead arm, and it's like it'll just be on the outside of your arm, like it's like it literally feels like someone just Charlie horsed you, like right here, and it's like you don't feel like you're throwing hard, but it's still coming out. You just feel like you're almost moving in water, and it's like nothing's hurting. It's just the volume increase, and then you kind of get that same feeling. At least for me, I kind of get that same feeling. Say probably like post All Star break, like the 1st of August, the second week of August, and then after that, it's good. Like it's just kind of like those two little five day periods of like, holy crap, I need to get this thing going, move it around, wake it up. But otherwise, I mean, again, I feel like I've dialed it in with my off season to get me through October.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from two apparel sponsors of this podcast. The first is Zero Negative. They are a brand out to inspire and empower individuals to find a positive message in everything they do, every time. They promote positivity and mindfulness in all of their products. Check them out at zeronegative.com. And last but not least, Few Will Hunt. It's one of my favorite brands out there. It's a great American company out of Philadelphia, out to restore the dignity of hard work. It is by far my favorite shirt to work out in. Check them out online at fewwillhunt.com. Now back to the episode. Did you stay in starter mode the entire year of like training and preparation, or did you like once they're like, hey, we're gonna put you back in the bullpen? Like, did anything change about the way you prepared?
So when I showed up to camp, I was a reliever, and kind of again in Boston, I came to camp with Boston as a reliever, got to go through the whole year as a reliever, and felt really good finishing the year in Boston. So kind of knew what a good year as a reliever felt like. So when I signed with Philly coming into spring, they told me they wanted me to be a reliever, whatever. So went through the same off season, got prepped, came into spring, kept doing what I was doing, and then they were like, "Hey, we're going to make you a starter." And then again, going back to Morgan and Fury, they just sat down with me. They're like, "Hey, we like the program you do. Let's just add a little more conditioning into the lifting part of the program as you're lifting." So like we just put like intervals in between each set of lifts and just change that. And then when I was done starting, we laid back on the conditioning side of it and just more strength side of it. So really for me, my strength program, whether I'm starting or relieving, would be the same. It's just going to be the conditioning for me.
That makes sense. I have a question because I've heard some players and some pitchers cite like long-term health concerns, like they want to preserve their health throughout the entire course of the season. I want to be able to finish 162, so like not pitching more than an inning, not like 3 days in a row. Like as like a competitor, like the fierce competitor you are, like can you shine some like light on this kind of thing? Like, have you seen that? And like, are the concerns of like, I'd prefer to not go more than 3 outs because I want to pitch all year. Is that like something that like is that like a valid concern?
Feel like you're setting me up for a specific someone, but no, for me, it's I mean, this may sound over the top, but I mean, if I if I die or end my career playing baseball, that's what I want. That's what I love doing. Like it is what it is. So for me, it's like I throw every pitch with no regards for my human health. Like it is what it is. there's a business to this entirety. Like, I mean, there's more money in this game than we can imagine, and it is important for guys to stay healthy so they do get paid. Um, I feel like I'm past that in my career of looking to get paid. I'm looking to get one thing, and that's a ring. Um, I mean, getting my 10 years, that would be cool, but I want one thing, and that's a ring. But I will never knock somebody for being like, hey, I'm not throwing today because I've thrown 3 days in a row, or I've thrown the last 4 or 5. Like, I'm not throwing. Like, we're independent contractors in a way, so like I understand the business side of it, but my personal belief, I grew up in a very competitive family, and my dad would throw his shoe at me if I ever walked into Topper's office and said I wasn't going to throw today.
Okay, I think fans are gonna appreciate this perspective because, like, I feel like we don't hear a lot about like the behind the scenes or like what guys' individual interests are, and I feel like we always just kind of get this like distilled like, and it's either black or white. It has to be
Yeah.
this or that if somebody feels this way, and it's like, yeah, I think that's a cool conversation that's had, and maybe we'll have
No
a
doubt.
little more
And I think
compassion for people.
I think teams do an unbelievable job of protecting some guys, but then there's also teams that abuse guys. Like, you have both ends of the spectrum. And again, I'll tip my cap to Topper. He does a great job with his bullpen of resting guys, and I mean, giving a like making sure we're all ready for October. And some guys, like me specifically, I don't understand that when I am compete in September. I'm competing. Like, it is what it is. And when the spot in the lineup comes that would have fit for me, and they go to someone else, and I'm sitting here wondering, like, at least in my opinion, I would want guys on my team that are wondering, why am I not throwing, and leaving it up to the manager to be like, we're not throwing him today because we need him ready in 2 days. Like, that's not my job to worry about. Like, it's hard enough getting these guys out in the big leagues to have to worry about other things like my well-being even. It's I want to worry about getting these guys out, and that's it.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I had a question because the MLB rule changes that were announced this winter, there's a couple tweaks, there's a couple things, and even went back and listened to what you said last time about the pitch clock and the time it takes and how it's like affected your control of the running game.
Yeah,
So they dropped it from 20 seconds to 18 with runners on.
yeah.
Um, and there's a couple other little ones, but like, do you have any thoughts on 2 less seconds? Like, how is that going to impact your game this year?
I think it gets them one more commercial or something like that
Okay.
for the entirety of the game. So I don't know. I guess again, more money to spend in free agency. So I guess it's good.
Um, yeah, I mean, like, so as the season went on, like the running game, like how did you fare throughout the course of last year? Because I think that was probably the biggest, change you probably experienced, right?
Yeah. I mean, without giving away my tricks, the biggest thing for me still is to try hold the ball. Um, so the one thing I think with a runner on, I think the hitter should have to be in the box maybe 2 seconds earlier. Like, just kind of like give us a little, especially when our pickoffs are limited. Again, the only thing we can do is hold the ball. And even if we're going to hold the ball, they still have a clock of when we're going to go. And I guarantee you, Tampa Bay knows the percentage of times I throw a pitch between 4 and 3 seconds, and the percentage I throw a pitch between 7 and 6. Like, I'm sure that's all out there. So you 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 gave them a starting block essentially when you put a clock on the field. So um, yeah, and I get it. Everyone wants offense. We want to see that, but I don't know. I'm just a traditionalist. I love the games inside the game, and yeah, I'm still trying to play them. I have a stopwatch on them now.
Was
I
that
need to
was that a
start working on
hard?
the pickoff move. That's what I've learned.
Wait, what did you say about your pickoff move?
I need to start working on it. I've always thought lefties either have a really good move or a really bad move. There's usually not like lefties that you're like, that one's okay. It's either they pick off 4 to 7 guys a year or no pickoffs. And it's like those are lefties. And I fall in the I don't have a move. So I need to work on my Andy Pettit.
Yeah. So wait, is that something this spring that like is in the back of your mind? Like, put a little extra time into that part of it?
Yeah, no doubt. Caleb gets out here on the first, I believe. Talked with him a little bit about it. I mean, the biggest thing you can do is just practice it, and really, what you need is you need base stealers to practice with you, so you know what they're looking for or stuff like that. Like Caleb and I can sit there on the mound and I can practice with him and him tell me it looks good, but love Caleb to death. He's never stole a bag in the big leagues.
You got to get Trey to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
When you're this is actually I've always wanted to know this from a pitcher's perspective. When you're facing an all or nothing hitter, because that's always something we talk about. It's like there's home run hitters and they strike out a lot. Like they're one or the other. When you're facing somebody up there at the plate, like does your mindset like how do you prepare to face somebody that's so like dramatically one or the other like that?
Yeah. It obviously depends on like what kind of how locked in they are in at that time. Like one of your free swingers in Baltimore, Chris Davis, when he was there.
Yes.
That was a guy where it was like, not that you didn't want to hit his bat, but it was like if you kept it up, you felt like you'd get him. So that's kind of like, I'm just going to attack you with everything I got at the top of the zone. When you get a guy like Judge, when you feel his swing every time he swings, you almost feel like you got to be more fine with everything, which plays to his advantage with pitchers trying to do that. They tend to leave more mistakes. So again, for me, I mean, I love riding or dying with my fastball. So it's for me, it's just forget about them and compete with your best. And again, hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things to do in this world. So yeah, just have the confidence in yourself. And I mean, I love a challenge. I love the guys who swing hard because I like to throw the fastball, and if they're going to get it, we're going to have something to look at.
And that's what I've always appreciated about you. It's just like you're my best against his best.
Yeah.
You're out there on the mound. You're not trying to nibble. I feel like you're always just trying to go after guys. Like, and you've had a lot of success doing that. Was there ever a point when you're in your own head too much about that kind of thing? Like, oh my God, I hope I don't miss because it's going to be 500 feet over there.
Yeah, I can remember in 2017 when I made the team out of spring. Um, we opened up in Minnesota, and my first outing in Minnesota, I think I walked the first guy on 4 straight pitches of my first opening day roster. Walked the guy on four straight pitches, and then I ended up walking one more guy, but I gave up a hit in between there, and I got pulled after the third hitter. And then we go to Houston, or no, the next day I threw again, and I come in and I walk the first guy again. And from that point on, it was like almost like the opposite of like tunnel vision. It was like pinhole vision, and it looked like I was trying to hit a keyhole from second base. And I ended up having one more outing after that in Houston. We got walked off on a walk-off walk. I ended up walking the guy to lose the game. And it was in 2017, so nobody knows if he knew it was coming or not. But yeah, walk-off walk, and then I got optioned, and I went down to AAA. And I remember telling Cam Gallagher, he came out for my first outing, asked me what signs I wanted to use, and I told him none. I want you to set up down the middle. I'm going to throw it through you. And he looks at me and he's like, "You mean all fastballs?" And I go, "Well, yeah, Cam. Like, I'm not just going to start pitching out here without signs. Like, I need to find the strike zone." And that honestly got me back on track. And it was a short window, but it was a scary window for sure.
So wait, the very next like day after you had the walk off walk, they sent you down.
So no, they actually let me fly home to Kansas City for our opening day, because you know how they do like opening day, then another series, and then the next opening day. They actually flew me home for that opening day. Sat in the bullpen for that game. I can't remember if we won or lost, but I didn't pitch, and then came in and I got optioned after that game. Went to AAA, and then I think that was on so that had to be like a Thursday or Friday, and then on Sunday I threw in AAA. So it was, yeah, it was. I got optioned within a week of the season starting.
Well, I was talking to Brian about this the other day, just like using things as like motivation or fuel. Like Are you the type of person that would like that would be the kind of thing that you would use as like extra like, all right, I'm gonna, use this as juice now?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I definitely pitch with a chip on my shoulder. I always have, and um, it was just kind of one of those things of it wasn't even to like stick it to them. It was just more so like just quit being scared and just do your thing. Like, why are you? This isn't you, and just had to prove it to myself. So went out there in a AAA game and decided I'm doing nothing but fastballs down the middle and see if we can get out of it. I think it was 11 pitches, got 2 pop outs, and struck the last guy out. So it was like perfect.
Got your confidence back probably.
Exactly. Exactly.
Dang. So 2022 versus 2023. I'm addicted to Baseball Savant. It's my new favorite thing. I'll just sit and look at graphs and charts and colors of things.
Yeah.
Um, and I was reading an article about this too. Like you added a slider, and I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by this. And your slider is legit. You're 25%. That was your pitch rate you threw it this past year. You had a 33% strikeout rate with your slider, but it's also kind of like a new thing. Can you talk
Yeah.
about how you worked it into your arsenal?
So it's actually my entire life throwing. I mean, what Savant called my curveball is, I mean, I still call it my curveball. It registers as a slider now. So really, what happened was when I showed up to spring and here with Philly, Caleb and Cap started talking to me about like getting my slider to have more depth. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, that's the biggest thing I struggle with is getting my slider below the zone. I can close my eyes and dump it in for a strike. Like, that's no problem. But finishing a guy with it, I could never do. And they just made a small tweak to my grip. They just rolled it back in my hand. I spaced my fingers out a little bit. They're like, now just think the same thing. And I threw one of them, and JT was catching me. It was my first bullpen, and JT was catching everyone's because he was leaving for the WBC. And I threw it, and Jay looks up and he's like, "That was good." And then just kind of threw it ever since there. And then we actually changed the grip of it after the wild card series going into the uh, NLDS. So yeah, we changed the grip and it got even more depth. So I was like, it's a new little toy I got, and it's been working really well.
So wait, how does Baseball Savant like register what a pitch is? Because we've had a debate on this podcast. I still don't know what the difference between a changeup and a splitter is. How do they register it? And is that like a thing where it's like that's just not what it is?
I mean, so when I was in Boston, I used to tell everyone I threw a curveball and a slider. And Veritek was like, no, you throw a slider and a cutter. I was like, okay, whatever. And then like one day he was talking to me. He was like, hey, you need to throw your slider more. And I was like, slider or like which one? Like, because I call him curveball slider, you call him slider cutter. So like to me, it's always like, why does a pitch like the sweeper that's not a
I
pitch?
still don't know what a sweeper is.
That's not a pitch. It's a slider. Like everyone's like, oh no, a slider is different than a sweeper. No, just because one guy throws it like, are we gonna make up a new name for DeGrom's slider since he throws it 94 and nobody else does? Like we gonna make him call it a cutter because it's above 90? Like the sweep this changing your angles of your curveball or your slider doesn't make it a new pitch. It's just a different curveball or a different slider.
And then there's a
Like
slur, which I
Yu
still like.
Darvish, Yu Darvish throws 3 different curveballs. He doesn't have 3 different names for him. He's just got 3 curveballs because he understands. Like that is the master of pitching. He understands that this is a curveball. It is going to do this, but I can make it do. I can make it a little slurvier. It's still a curveball. Like it's yeah. I mean, you got to let these guys have their lingo. I guess let them have what they want. But yeah, I don't. I I I always just ask my catcher, what do you want this to be, and what do you want this to be, and then I'll throw it. Like whichever one you want it to be, I'll throw.
How many different pitches do you throw? Because like I feel like there's like you might still have that starter like arsenal, which is like 4 or 5.
Yeah, so I throw a 4 seam and a 2 seam. Then I throw a cutter and a slider, and then a changeup.
Okay. Savant also called one of them a splitter or a sinker at one point. So
Yeah, it's definitely not a sinker. Like I mean, it. That's the other thing with my 2 seam. If I throw my 2 seam, if you take the halfway line of the strike zone from top to bottom, and you draw a line through the middle. If I throw my two seam above that line, it'll kind of ride up. If I throw it below that line, it'll sink down. And all that is just where I release it and how much more I hang on to it or more prone. Like we're talking millimeters of difference in the hand that affect that pitch. So for them to be like, oh, it's a sinker, well, I don't even know what it's going to do when it leaves my hand. It might be a two seamer, it might be a sinker. It just depends on where it is on that line. So again,
Yeah.
like, am I going to say I throw three fastballs because one is a two seam and one sinks and one rides? Like, no, I throw two fastballs, one just does something.
Noted sinker ball pitcher Matt Strahm.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be kind of cool though. Like,
yeah,
I feel like sinker ball pitchers are in like their own kind of breed. Like, that could have got you drafted by the Rockies back in the day.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from the official sponsor of Not For Long Media and the Breaking Bats podcast, the original Fudge Kitchen. It is a staple of the Jersey Shore with 6 locations in Cape May, Wildwood, North Wildwood, Stone Harbor, and Ocean City. The original Fudge Kitchen makes all of their fudge in store, guaranteeing a delicious product, so stop by and let them know that Not For Long Media and Breaking Bats sent you. Check them out online at fudgekitchens.com as they are shipping fudge and sweet treats all across the country. Now back to the episode. So I want to stick with pitching. The Phillies brought back Aaron Nola.
Yeah,
I am such a big fan of his. Like just the model of consistency, like
yeah,
playing with him this past year and watching him compete. Like what have you liked about playing with him and what makes him so good at what he does?
yeah. I mean, he's very routine oriented. I mean, he knows what he needs to do for every fifth day to take the ball and give us 6 innings. Uh, he's the ultimate pro. Does all of his stuff. I mean, you can't. There's not a bad thing to say about Nola. Him and I were locker mates, so got to know him quite a bit. And he's just a down to earth guy. I mean, you ran into that guy in the street, you'd have no idea he's as rich as he is. He's such a simple man and such a hard worker that, yeah, he's fun to be around and he's fun to talk to, no doubt.
I just like the idea of like players playing for one team. Like I love
Yeah,
one team guys. Is
yeah.
that something that like do you think that players like that feeling too? Like if they players had it their way, they would stick with one team for their entire career?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part for me every year is like from San Diego to Boston to here was you learn all new people and you leave people behind. It's like it's not they're gone from your life, but you don't see them every day, and you build relationships that are going to last a lifetime. And you go from seeing people every day to all of a sudden now got to learn a whole new room and not even knowing what next year brings. So I definitely think guys love that security of knowing what they have and what they've built in a certain area. But I mean, it's very rare to see. I can't even think of many other guys other than Nola right now that have 10 plus years with the same team.
Yeah. Well, there's like Kershaw, but I don't really know
Kershaw,
what's
yeah,
going on with him.
Kershaw.
Yeah.
But like other than that, I can,
It's very rare. And
yeah,
like I like as a fan having like the ability to cheer for somebody for so long. Like
no doubt,
you buy the jersey and it thing's good for 20 years.
no doubt. That's
Um
like Todd Helton, 17 years. Could you imagine that that's 17 years with the Rockies? That's wild.
the most probably that's like the best for routine ever. You can just buy a house and just like don't have to worry about renting anymore.
You buy a compound, move your
Yeah.
extended family out there.
Um, Going back to the Orioles though, uh, so Craig Kimbrell obviously coming over to
Yeah.
Baltimore, he's been doing it for so long at such a high level. Like, is there anything about like the way he prepares or like, did you like what was the Craig Kimbrell like? What was it like being teammates with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's an ultimate teammate, and I mean, he's definitely a friend of mine for life. Got to go down to his farm in Tennessee actually this offseason and hunt with him, which was cool. But I mean, Craig is again that I mean, I keep repeating myself, but the Phillies clubhouse is full of pros, and Craig is a guy who, again, you probably know what time of day it is based on if Craig's stretching or if Craig's in the weight room or if Craig's out in the hallway FaceTiming his daughter. Like he's very routine, big family man. But yeah, something about him, like out in the bullpen, something that sticks out to me from him in the bullpen was when he got out there, he was just a happy-go-lucky guy, talking to the boys. And then as it was like seventh innings wrapping up, you almost just see like just like a seriousness set in, and he starts doing his stuff, and then he gets over on the bench, and he pulls his pants up over his knee, ties his shoes, and then when that phone rings, like they haven't even told him he's in the game yet, and he's already slamming his pants down over his cleats. And I just remember one day watching it and being like, "It's over. Sorry, like it's over." So yeah, it was cool to watch, and yeah, he's been doing it forever. I mean, undoubtedly a Hall of Famer, and I mean, I was very very fortunate to be able to call him a teammate last year and get to see him do his thing in person.
Wait, so when he sees the phone ring, he gets ready, even not knowing if it's him? Like, what if it's like you or somebody else? Like, has there ever been like, actually, no,
Yeah,
it's not you. It's not you, Craig.
yeah, no, it definitely had happened a couple times, but again, it is what it is. But 98% of the time, he hit it on the head of like knowing this is him. The other ones were probably him thinking it was him, but him being told he was down, and then him telling him, "No, I'm not down," and they're like, "Well, we're not going to use him, but he can think he's down." Like, but that's just the way he is. He's the guy too, where he's not going to walk into your office and tell you he can't pitch today. I think last year was the most outings he's ever thrown in his career, other than his rookie year. So it's like again, those are the guys you want on your team, especially in the bullpen. Those are guys you want in a bullpen with you. So I was very fortunate to be his teammate last year.
I'm very fortunate to have him in Baltimore.
Yes, it should be.
Uh,
Got a good one.
do relief pitchers also just have like a sixth sense for like knowing like it's my time?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, especially later in the year, you kind of know what everyone's roles are. Um, it's just kind of like, I mean, Hoffy and I knew there at the end, it was like usually if the starter got in trouble, depending if it was lefties or righties, it was either going to be Hoffy or myself. And then if it was going to be a clean inning with a lefty leading off, it's probably going to be Alvarado after the sixth. Like you kind of learn, like you feel those things out, and you know your pockets. And I mean, I knew every time we played the Marlins, it was a little pocket with a rise and jazz, and it was like, okay, when this one's coming up, I'll start moving around and wait for the phone to ring. And if it doesn't ring, I got 6 more batters until we get back to it. So we'll see. But you
Like
kind of, especially with the way the game's going with numbers now, like I miss the days of the 14-15 Royals where it was like seventh inning. Oh, your best hitters are up. Well, Kelvin Herrera's coming in no matter what. Like here he is because he's our seventh inning guy. I kind of miss those days, but again, I understand it. It's a numbers game, and got to play the numbers.
did you know that your number was going to get called to close out the NLDS against Atlanta?
So I didn't know that going into it, but when you looked around the bullpen and you saw them use Alvy early, and then they used Craig in like the seventh, I think it was. I think they used Craig in the seventh, Alvy in the sixth, and then I'm looking around and I'm like, Soto gets in trouble here. It's going to be a lefty. That's going to be me. So it was like, all right, here we go. And sure enough, it happened, and I don't remember much after that.
Where does that moment rank in your career?
Oh, definitely the number one moment. I mean, anytime you are on the mound to get the last out of a playoff series and to be stormed by your teammates like that, you can't really top that other than if it's the one for the World Series. So I'd have to say it's definitely probably number one,
What
especially
a
since they
moment.
got a Tops Now card out of it.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, they made a Tops Now card of it the next day, so I thought that was pretty cool.
How many baseball cards of yourself do you have?
Jeez,
Do they
I
just
don't know.
send you up like
Yeah, I mean, I have probably 70 different like image variations of cards of me. I don't know how many copies, like I have multiple copies of each one, but I mean, I have 14 or 15 different rookie variations, and then I have most of all my heritage and update series cards. So over 8 years, that would be like 16. So yeah, probably like 30 different variations.
That's cool. You ever just rip a pack and you're like, oh, there I am.
Yeah. So last night we were actually opening cards with my brother, and uh, we have a running joke like 5, 6 months ago when I was opening up a box. Some of the boxes tell you if you have like they guarantee you an auto in them or something. And I had a box that guaranteed you one auto, and I opened the box and I put the packs on the table, and my brother reached over and grabbed one, and he opens it up, and it was a 101 Jason Dominguez printing plate. And I was like, "Are you kidding me, dude? I just sat down to open this $300 box of cards. You grab one pack and you hit the hit out of it. Like, are you kidding me?" So we have this running joke when he grabs a pack. So last night I was opening cards, and he reached over and he grabbed a pack, and he's flipping through them, and he starts freaking out. He's like, "Oh!" And he turns it around. It was one of mine. He's like, "Matt Strahm." And I was like, "You're lucky it was that. I was going to be pissed again if you got my hit."
You pull a card that you signed.
Yeah.
Ooh, here's one. Do you guys play MLB The Show? Do baseball players play MLB The Show?
I know some. I know a lot of guys do. I'm not much of a video gamer. I kind of fell into the Fortnite thing a little bit, but I mean, I don't think I've played that for like 3 years now. So, yeah, I'm not a big video gamer. So
Okay.
I don't personally.
I've always wondered if active players are playing it and they're like, do they choose themselves? Like, I don't know. I feel like that would be maybe too meta.
Yeah, I mean, if I chose myself, I would go in and I would change myself to a first baseman probably and boost all my hitting accolades up and then just play that way.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do a couple last questions for you. Thank you,
All
Matt,
right.
as
Yeah,
always.
no
You're the
problem.
man.
No problem.
Um, I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your entrance song, it's Tim McGraw, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. How bad do you want it? How
Yep.
did you pick that song? And would you say you're a country guy, like country music fan in general?
Yeah. So believe it or not, when I was, want to say like 12 or I was probably like anywhere from 11 to 13 when that song came out. And every time we'd go to the lake, my mom was a huge Tim McGraw fan. My mom and dad were huge Tim McGraw fans, and we'd listen to it all the time. And my mom would always joke that that was like, "How bad do you want it, Matt? Like, you want to make the big leagues? You got to work. How bad do you want it?" And so I actually walked out to that all of high school, and I walked out to it all of college, and then I never chose a walkout song in my big league career until I was in Boston. And in Boston, I just went with something that was kind of like a little, kind of had a little Irish vibe to it. It was good. It matched Boston. And then when I came here, I was like, yo, they have a Tug McGraw plaque out in the bullpen. Like, there's no like this is if this is not stars aligning, I don't know what is. Like, I got to bring back the "How bad do you want it?" And my mom loved it, and yeah, it was sweet.
Dang, that's a long story. I feel like every time I notice something like the number 25, and there's always like you always have like a cool story for it. So I always appreciate that.
Yeah,
Um,
I usually do things with a purpose, not just by the
I
seat of
like
my
that.
pants most of the time.
If you could steal somebody else's entrance song though, who on your team, who would it be? I feel like the Phillies might have some bangers in there.
Um, I mean, you got to go with Bryson Stott. The entire stadium sings it. Like, that's so sick. This
You
is
have to might have to,
A-OK.
oh, that's such a good one.
Yeah,
Okay.
and like the entire stadium busts out. Did you not see the home run he hit with the fan audio, the grand slam he hit?
I have to go back and watch it.
You got to go back
Also,
and watch it. You got to look it up with
admittedly, I'm
no audio and just listen to the crowd because they're still singing his walkout as he hits the grand slam. It's wild.
oh, okay. Harper, I might just take Harper's. I feel like does he still use the Moby song? Where yeah.
I feel like Harper has like 3 or 4 different ones that he like kind of rotates. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, the one that sticks out to me the most is Stotts. I like Stotts, and I like Rangers. So is it Mr. Rager? Mr. Rager. Everybody did.
Are there some
Minnesota
players
Twins,
that
they all had it.
yeah? All right, do players have like strong opinions on like uniforms or like I can't stand that one.
So Nola doesn't like the baby blues. But Nola's funny because Nola's got to wear his socks for 2 weeks before they're broken in. So he's finicky on how he feels, which I give him crap about all the time, and it's funny. But some guys are particular in that way, and I totally get it. Like you don't want to be uncomfortable in something, especially when you're trying to compete at such a high level.
Is that like how Brandon Marsh just keeps his hair wet the entire time? Is that just
Yeah,
like
that he loves the feeling of his hair wet, and I'm like, yo,
yeah.
I could not do that. As soon as I get in from pitching, like I usually go out I shower before the game so my hair's damp, and then I go out and it gets as wet as I sweat, which sometimes in Philly is a lot, and then I can't wait to get into the clubhouse and get my hair up off my neck when it's that wet and sweaty sticking to my neck. I don't like that.
I feel like I'll look at like show the dugout and I just see him like with like a cup of water, just like going at it.
Oh,
Wow.
he'll just go double bottles of water, pour them over his head. You can see his whole back of his jersey will be wet, especially when we're on the road wearing the grays. You can see it easily. Yeah.
So it's like you're already sweaty enough, and like the gray is not a flattering color for that, and then
Right.
it's just damp.
Yep. Yep.
I think the first time we had you on, I asked you about because you're a Joe Mauer guy, I think, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Hall of Fame, first ballot. Like
Yeah, that's
some
awesome.
people were not fans of that. When you watched and played against him, and just like being a fan of his, like did you feel he was a first ballot guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ken Rosenthal said it best when he said he looks at for the Hall of Fame, you have to dominate a decade. And I feel like too many people. I feel like too many people dog Mike Trout right now too. It's like, dude, this guy's done it for over a decade in this game. Like, and he's still doing it at the top and still being one of the best in the league. Like you, Joe Mauer for 10 years was hands down the best catcher in the league. And you couldn't argue. He hit over 300 every year as a catcher, like Buster Posey and him, right? Like that's it. And so, I mean, the people like the people that don't want him in, it's because they're like, oh, he probably didn't do anything in the playoffs. Well, he played for a small market. They never really spent money. The money they did spend was on him. And it's like they didn't really build around him after they gave him that deal, and that you can't punish a guy for that. Like, I mean, when you're voting for the Hall of Fame, it should be for 162 games. Like you're voting based on the 162. Like, are we gonna like no matter Randy Rosarina could go on to be a Hall of Famer, but because he's the best postseason player of a decade, is he a Hall of Famer? Like, is that more important than what Joe Mauer did for 162 over 10 years?
You have to put
Like,
every player from the Yankees in the '90s in at that point.
exactly, exactly. They all need to be in there. But no, I think Joe Mauer for me was for sure a Hall of Famer. I was a little surprised that it was first ballot, but I was super excited, especially as growing up a fan of his and watching him play. That was cool to watch, and yeah, it'll. I mean, ultimate dude.
The best, like the clear cut number one at his position for so long. And people are like, oh, what about this catcher? Or what about this catcher? It's like,
No.
I don't know. A lot of these guys weren't, winning 3 batting titles.
And that's the other thing too. Like again, Yadier Molina, Hall of Famer, right?
Hmm?
He did not do what Joe Mauer did with the bat,
No.
and Joe Mauer was still a Gold Glove back there. An elite defender catcher, standing 6'4", 6'5", like that's also unheard of. Like the last catcher that was that big was who? Matt Wieters.
He was Joe Mauer with power.
Right. Yeah. But it's like also though the Joe Mauer power thing that the Twins screwed him on building that new stadium. They did not take Joe Mauer's swing into account when they should have because he had 6 more years in that park or whatever it was.
The pre-target and the post-target field, Joe Mauer,
Yeah.
also the first base move. But yeah, that's when you look at the baseball reference, you're like, ew.
Right. But I mean the Metrodome played well for him. The big bag out in right field. And then put him outdoors and you have a giant wall in his power alley to right center, and then his left center power alley is the bullpen's way out there. It's like, what are we doing? Like,
The ballpark was not conducive to Joe Mauer's power. I think
no,
it
not at all.
did him a disservice.
Yes, it did. No doubt.
Did you strike him out, or what was the at bat story you said?
I did. So that was I don't know if you saw last year the Twins when they had him throw out the ceremonial first pitch. They had the pitcher come out that struck him out in high school. It was the only pitcher in 4 years, and so that story was just that story goes across the Midwest. When I was in high school, is like Joe Mauer is a freak. He's a legend. Never struck out in high school, or struck out once in high school. So when I got to the big leagues, it was kind of like the one thing I set out is if I get Joe Mauer in the box, I'm not trying to get a double play ball or whatever. I'm trying to punch him out because he doesn't strike out. And I got him to strike out on a 3-2 pitch, looking, and it was a ball. so he was correct, but the umpire was on my side that day. So
Working the corners.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I love that video of just like the one guy that struck him out. He just looks like a very average, nice, modest looking person. And it's
Yeah.
like he struck out
Joe, Hall of Fame catcher Joe Mauer. Yeah.
First ballot. Okay, last question. This is going back to the NLDS, the celebration when you guys won.
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot about Garrett Stubbs before this year,
Yeah.
but he might be one of my new favorite players. Where does he rank in terms of all-time good vibes guys you've played with?
Yeah, he's at the top of the list, no doubt. I got a good Garrett Stubbs story for you, actually. So him and I, my first 4 starts of the year were all with Garrett. So it happened to time up to where JT either caught a night game and we were throwing a day game or whatever. And they were all 4 with Garrett. And we're in Cincinnati, and I'm having an awful start. It was like the first inning, I walked a guy, was going full count on everybody. And second inning, go out, walk the first guy on like 4 pitches at the top of the zone that were absolutely nutted. Just boom, 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 boom. All 4 balls. And I was pissed. And Stubby could tell I was. And he calls time and he runs out to me. And dude, like, I've only known Stubby for like spring training in the like month of the season at this point. And he's always just been a happy-go-lucky dude, all about the vibes. And this dude comes out to me, looking up at me, and he just barks. He's like, "Those are right there. I let him know it. Keep pounding the zone." Maybe a few explicitives. And I was just like kind of taken back, and I was like, damn, I just got put in my spot by a 5'10", 170-pound catcher. I was like, what? I was like, I like this guy. This is awesome. So he's just got – he reads the room really well. Like when it's time for him to get the guys going, he is the show. And when it's time to be serious, he's serious. On his days that he catches, he's the first one in that clubhouse. He's got his binder open, going through the lineup. Like he's all about it, and he does a very good job of managing it. One of the best backup catchers I've seen, of like how he just handles that role. I've had backup catchers that are sour that they're not getting at bats or not getting to play, but Stubby does an unbelievable job at his job and knowing what he needs to do to contribute to this team, and happy to have him back. I love throwing to that guy.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I said, like I just saw like the overalls and the Bud Heavy helmet, and I'm like, you know what? I might get a Stubbs jersey now. This guy seems like the best.
Yeah. There should be plenty of Stubb jerseys fucking floating around this year, but he's the man, and like I said, he knows how to keep the clubhouse loose, and the guys love him.
That's the best. And that's what you need from a backup catcher too. Like that's exactly like it should be all about good vibes and like preparation, and yeah, that's
no doubt. He kills it, dude. He's best I've seen.
It's like a backup quarterback. It's like how do backup quarterbacks stay in the NFL for 15 years? It's like Chase Daniel, probably the best good vibes guy ever, probably.
Right, exactly. You got to be.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, this has been fantastic. Matt, you're the man. As always, thank you for coming on. We'll have to get you back on again, get the 4, tie Pete Fairbanks. So
Yes, sir.
Best of luck this season, dude. And, we'll be following.